They're one of those cases. One of those cases of franchises that don't get any media attention. Ever since LeBron left the franchise in the 2018 offseason, it seems like the Cleveland Cavaliers have ceased to exist. However, this season, in which they finished 4th in the Eastern Conference, marks their 3rd consecutive winning season. The Cavs have not only managed to rebuild since LeBron's departure in free agency that left them with virtually no assets, but they've managed to do it in record time. But we all know one thing. In the NBA, small markets are never respected accordingly. And even though the Cavs have one of the best players in the league, who at times has even hovered around the MVP ladder in Donovan Mitchell, the attention they've received all season has been minimal. But in addition to having to deal with that, the team suffered numerous injuries to key players throughout the season. Yet they've managed to build a culture that can make them competitive for years and years to come. Now then, how did they do it? Well, today, let's talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers. The truth is that the Cavs are a very interesting team. Their backcourt is made up of 2 scoring guards who are capable of taking on a lot of the offensive responsibility. If we add the averages of Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, we get a production of 44.6 points and 12.6 assists per game, which is about 70 points generated per night between the 2 players.
Allen lost the ball as Allen held his ground. Garland to Mitchell. Oh my!
In addition, the Cavs' 6th man, Caris Levert, has had a special role this year. Injuries to Garland and Mitchell during different stretches of the season have allowed him to have his best season since coming to Cleveland. The funny thing is that his playstyle is similar to that of the starting guards, and that's allowed the Cavs to have a top-notch replacement that fits the system perfectly. The system works because the backcourt is surrounded by players who have been able to internalize their offensive role. Now, I'm not saying that Jarrett Allen or Evan Mobley are just role players. The dimension of their game goes far beyond that. But on offense, they're players aware of their limits who usually make good decisions. The chemistry Cleveland's developed so far this season has caused the team to rank 3rd in the entire NBA in assist percentage at 67.1%, 4th in the entire NBA in assist ratio at 20.2, and 9th in the entire league in assist-to-turnover ratio at 2.1. They really know how to pass the rock and get good looks.
Evans, Strus grabs the loose ball. 3-on-1. Garland. Allen!
However, this offensive system has only allowed them to rank 16th in offensive rating. Cleveland has an average offense by modern NBA standards, which, by the way, is very high. But what's allowed Cleveland to achieve wins with assiduity and place themselves in the group of contenders in the Eastern Conference has been without a doubt their defense. The Cavs have been the 6th best team in the entire league in defensive rating, or in other words, they've been the 6th team that's conceded the fewest points per 100 possessions. How did they do it? Well, in a logical way. Cleveland was the 5th team to allow the lowest effective field goal percentage. Despite being an average defense when it comes to defending three-pointers, their interior defense was the 4th with least points allowed in the entire NBA, behind only Minnesota, Boston, and Denver. Thanks also to the 27.4 contested twos per game, which is the 7th highest figure in the NBA. In addition, Cleveland's become the 5th team in the league with the highest number of box outs per game, behind only Boston, New Orleans, Golden State, and Houston. And we can easily point out those who were responsible for the Cavs' improved defensive performance.
Sexton to the basket. That doesn't go. Mobley bats it off the window.
The pair of big men that form Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen have unique traits. Just think, how many teams in the modern NBA can afford to have 2 6'11" giants in the starting 5? It's true that the league is changing, but it's difficult to find players of that size that are able to get away from the rim so much on defense. With his frame, Allen and especially Mobley are capable of containing much smaller players. Their lateral quickness has made them very versatile players who are able to mitigate mismatches. In addition, they're 2 of the players with more offensive weight in JB Bickerstaff's plans. But it's not only them who are responsible. Some role players like Max Strus, Dean Wade, or Isaac Okoro also have some of the best individual defensive stats in the NBA. In Wade's case, his defensive rating of 103.5 points conceded per 100 possessions is the best of any player on the team. And it's not a fluke, as last year his advanced defensive stats also put him among the elite. Strus is the best of the wings in that regard with a defensive rating of 109.4 points conceded per 100 possessions, and Okoro is 5th on the team. What's most surprising this year, however, is that Donovan Mitchell had the 2nd best defensive rating on the team, behind only Wade. His contribution on both ends of the court is vital, and the 26 games he's missed this season have hurt Cleveland more than people realize. Still, the Cavs haven't struggled to clinch a position that will give them home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs. Not only has Mitchell missed 26 games, Darius Garland 24, Max Strus 12, and finally Evan Mobley has missed 32. Cleveland struggled mightily with injuries this season, but that doesn't stop them from nearly reaching the magic 50-win mark that represents a great season. Bickerstaff has managed to establish a culture in the franchise that's allowed secondary players to get minutes and do a good job. Okoro, Niang, Merrill have enjoyed what's been the best regular season of their career thanks to these opportunities, and they haven't disappointed.
Levert, 4 seconds to go. Into the corner. Okoro! Got it!
The sum of all these factors has allowed Cleveland to have the best chance to advance in the first round of the playoffs since the 2018 playoffs, when the team was a contender with LeBron James. After falling in the first round of last year's playoffs to the New York Knicks, the Cavs will face the Magic in this year's postseason. And being one of the few teams with an even younger core than Cleveland, this time it'll be the Cavs who have the experience factor. So fan expectations are higher than any other season. Falling again in the first round would be the worst-case scenario for the Cavs. As we pointed out earlier, Cleveland has one of the best guards in the entire NBA playing in a small market. During last offseason and this past trade deadline, rumors began to swirl that Donovan Mitchell might be ready to leave for a team that would allow him to play for a real contender, or at least for a bigger market. The 27-year-old shooting guard will become an expiring contract after this offseason, and if Cleveland doesn't perform well in the playoffs, they may be forced to trade him to recoup some of the investment they made for him just 2 years ago. It should be remembered that the Cavs sent All-Star Lauri Markkanen to Utah along with many more assets to get the superstar. So there's no margin for error. If the gamble goes wrong and Mitchell decides he wants to leave the franchise, the Cavs would only have 12 months to try to change his mind before the player loses all of his market value because his contract's up. And that would mean that the huge investment they made for him would, for all practical purposes, be completely worthless. But even in the worst-case scenario, Cleveland would still have one of the best young corners in the league. The team would only need one piece to contend for everything, although yes, that piece would be a superstar. Evan Mobley is going to be one of the best defenders of his generation, and he's only 22 years old.
Bolt spins baseline, deals the bank. Hero flashes and gets rejected by Mobley.
Darius Garland is a borderline all-star whose style of play can't be maximized by sharing the ball with Mitchell, but after all he's learned, he'd be able to kick it up a gear.
Beg your pardon. San Antonio scored the last 9 points. Garland crosses over Brandon.
No player in their rotation reaches 30 years of age except for George Niang, who's still a role player. But there's no reason to think that this won't happen. Injuries to Giannis Antetokounmpo and Julius Randle have opened the door for many franchises to have a good performance in the playoffs. The conference finals is always a difficult goal, but not impossible for one of the teams that can best adapt their regular season play to the playoffs because of their defensive style. And it's true, beating the Celtics seems like an impossible mission. But this way, Donovan and the rest of the players would realize that they're not so far away from glory, at least if they stay together.